Live television is meant to entertain and inform, but sometimes things take a dark turn. Unexpected events, accidents, and shocking moments have played out in real time, leaving viewers in disbelief. In this video, we'll look at 5 of the most disturbing moments in live television history, real events that shocked the world as they happened. March 6, 1995, started as a normal day in Lake Orion, Michigan. Scott Amador, a 32-year-old bartender known for his outgoing personality, appeared on The Jenny Jones Show, a daytime talk show famous for its dramatic surprises. He had agreed to participate in a segment called Secret Crush, where guests revealed romantic feelings for someone in their life. Scott's secret crush was 24-year-old Jonathan Schmitz, someone he had known for years. Jonathan had no idea he would be the subject of the surprise. When the reveal happened, he appeared uncomfortable but laughed it off, saying he was definitely heterosexual. The moment seemed light-hearted, and the two men hugged before the segment ended. But what seemed like harmless entertainment on television would soon lead to an unimaginable tragedy. 3 days later, on March 9th, Scott was dead. That morning, he left a playful note in Jonathan's mailbox, possibly hoping to continue their interaction. But instead of laughter, the note triggered something far more serious. Jonathan, feeling embarrassed and overwhelmed, withdrew money from his bank account and bought a shotgun. He then drove to Scott's mobile home in Lake Orion. When Scott answered the door, Jonathan asked if he had left the note. Scott confirmed it, reportedly smiling, unaware of the danger. In a sudden act of rage, Jonathan retrieved the gun from his car and returned. Without warning, he fired twice, hitting Scott in the chest. Jonathan immediately left, drove to a gas station, and called 911. He calmly admitted to what he had done, saying he acted out of humiliation following the television show appearance. Police quickly arrested him, and the shocking case soon became known as the Jenny Jones murder. During the investigation, questions arose about whether Jonathan had been misled by the show's producers. They claimed he had been informed that his secret admirer could be either male or female, but Jonathan insisted he thought it would be a woman. His defense attorneys argued that he acted out of extreme emotional distress, citing his past struggles with mental health conditions. Scott's family was devastated. His brother, Frank Amador Jr., spoke out against both Jonathan and The Jenny Jones Show, believing the producers had exploited Scott for entertainment. The case sparked debates about media responsibility and the ethics of reality television. Jonathan was charged with first-degree murder, but his defense team argued that he had reacted impulsively under pressure. In 1996, he was convicted of second-degree murder and sentenced to 25 to 50 years in prison. However, his conviction was later overturned on appeal. After a retrial in 1999, he was found guilty again and sent back to prison. Despite his sentence, Jonathan was released on parole in 2017 after serving 22 years. His release sparked further debate. Some believed he had paid his dues, while others, including Scott's family, felt he had never truly shown remorse. Jeffrey Feger, the Amador family's attorney, criticized the justice system for allowing Jonathan to walk free, especially since he had never issued a public apology. Meanwhile, Scott's family pursued legal action against The Jenny Jones Show and its parent company, Warner Brothers. They argued that the show had irresponsibly set up the segment, creating an embarrassing situation that led to Scott's death. In 1999, the family won a $29.3 million lawsuit. However, the decision was later overturned, with the court ruling that the show could not have predicted what would happen after the episode was filmed. The case remained a significant example of how sensationalized media can have unintended and tragic consequences. It was revisited in true crime documentaries, including Netflix's Trial by Media and Dark Side of the 90s, which explored how talk shows of that era often prioritized shock value over the well-being of their guests. While The Jenny Jones Show was never legally held responsible, the incident raised lasting concerns about media ethics. Could Scott's life have been spared if Jonathan had been given more information? If the show had taken a different approach, would things have ended differently? The shocking events surrounding Scott Amador's death exposed the darker side of reality television, where personal emotions are turned into entertainment sometimes with irreversible consequences. It was January 16, 2009, when an unexpected moment on live television left viewers across the world in stunned silence. Israeli journalist Shlomi Eldar was preparing to interview Foreign Minister Tzipi Livni about the war in Gaza when he received a call that would change the course of the broadcast and deeply move everyone watching. The call came from Dr. Izzeldin Abuelaish, a Palestinian doctor who had worked in Israeli hospitals for years. Known for his commitment to peace, Abuelaish never let the region's ongoing conflict cloud his belief in coexistence. But this time, he wasn't calling to talk about hope or his work. His voice trembled as he shared the devastating news that would forever change his life. Izzeldin's anguish poured through the phone as Eldar listened in disbelief. His home in Gaza had been struck in an airstrike, and the devastating news followed. 3 of Izzeldin's daughters and his niece had been killed instantly. Shaken by the raw grief in Izzeldin's voice, Eldar made a split-second decision to put the call on speaker. The entire nation was now able to hear the depth of his pain. In the background, the sounds of his surviving children crying filled the airwaves, adding to the tragedy unfolding. Izzeldin could barely hold it together, his words filled with sorrow as he recalled the futile attempt to save them. He spoke of his desperate efforts and the unbearable loss, questioning the cruelty of the situation. The moment was unlike anything seen before on television. A father, a doctor, a man who had dedicated his life to healing, was now experiencing unimaginable loss, live on air. His cries weren't just those of a grieving parent, they were a plea for an end to the violence. As the world watched, Abuelaish begged for help. Some of his family members were still alive, but with roads blocked and medical aid unable to reach them, their chances of survival grew slimmer by the second. He pleaded with Eldar, desperate for a way to get the injured to safety. The broadcast was raw and unscripted, a stark glimpse into the human cost of war. Eldar, deeply moved, turned to the Israeli Defense Forces, urging anyone listening to help. Viewers across Israel, many of whom had felt detached from the suffering in Gaza, suddenly saw the conflict in a different light. This wasn't just about politics or military operations. These were families, children, and human lives being torn apart. Eldar later reflected on the profound impact of that moment. It was the first time many Israelis were confronted with the faces of those directly affected by the tragedy, and it became impossible for them to ignore the reality of the situation any longer. The tragedy of Abuelaish's daughters, Besson, Meyer, and Aya, left a lasting scar. Besson had been studying business and was actively involved in peace efforts. Meyer dreamed of becoming a doctor, following in her father's footsteps. Aya, the youngest, loved poetry and had a bright future ahead. Their lives were taken in an instant, leaving their father with nothing but memories and an unbearable loss. Despite his pain, Abuelaish refused to let grief turn into hatred. Instead, he used his voice to call for peace. In the years that followed, he wrote a memoir titled, "I Shall Not Hate," a Gaza doctor's journey on the road to peace and human dignity, where he shared his story and his hope for a future where Palestinians and Israelis could live together without fear. His message resonated worldwide, making him a symbol of resilience. He was nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize 5 times, and despite the heartache he carried, he continued to push forward, speaking about the need for understanding and coexistence. That phone call on January 16, 2009, became a moment in history, an unfiltered, heartbreaking glimpse into the real cost of conflict. It wasn't just another news report. It was a father's desperate cry, a wake-up call to everyone watching. And though it couldn't bring back his daughters, it sparked conversations about peace, compassion, and the shared humanity that exists beyond the lines of war. It was 2016 in Moscow, Russia. A live taping of the popular television show Pro Lubov, or About Love, was in progress. The show, known for its light-hearted content, had something different planned that day, a special performance featuring Bonya, a large brown bear. Dressed in a red and yellow skirt with a matching hat, Bonya's playful appearance made it easy to forget she was still a wild animal. Her handler, dressed in a flamenco outfit, led her onto the stage. Bonya was secured with a muzzle and leash as a precaution. To keep her calm, the handler fed her small treats through the muzzle's opening. The bear obediently performed simple tricks, spinning in circles to the delight of the audience. Everything seemed to be going smoothly, until it wasn't. A young presenter on the show, filming a segment about wild animal safety, approached Bonya from behind. Perhaps misjudging the risk, she reached out to touch the bear. In a split second, Bonya reacted. Feeling threatened, she turned sharply and swiped her massive paw at the woman's clothing, pulling her down with surprising force. The studio fell silent. For a brief moment, it seemed the situation might escalate, but Bonya quickly lost interest. Her handler acted swiftly, pulling her away while reprimanding the presenter. The woman, visibly shaken, managed to stand up, her apology barely audible as she muttered a few words. Despite the frightening encounter, the presenter had no visible injuries, but the realization of what could have happened left everyone in shock. Even the cameraman, who had captured the moment, was seen keeping his distance from the bear. The entire crew was reminded that no matter how trained an animal might seem, instincts can take over in an instant. The audience, who had been entertained just moments earlier, now saw the reality of using wild animals in performances. Organizations like People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals, PETA, have long warned about the ethical issues surrounding captive bears. Many, like Bonya, were prevented from hibernating, which could affect their physical and mental well-being. This deprivation could lead to unpredictable behavior, especially in colder months. The handler's reaction wasn't just a warning. It was proof that a wild animal, no matter how well trained, is never truly tamed. Bonya had spent years in captivity, performing for crowds, but that didn't erase her instincts. The television crew had just witnessed firsthand how quickly a controlled environment could turn dangerous. As for the presenter, she was left with a lot to think about. Her segment was supposed to highlight the risks of interacting with wild animals, yet she had just become the perfect example of what not to do. She had been lulled into a false sense of security, distracted by the bear's costume and routine. But beneath the outfit and tricks, Bonya was still a powerful animal capable of serious harm. After the incident, Bonya was safely removed from the set. Thankfully, the situation did not escalate further, but it raised serious concerns about the use of wild animals in entertainment. Even with safety measures in place, the risks could never be fully controlled. This wasn't just a close call, it was a harsh lesson. The event reignited discussions about whether wild animals should be used for public performances at all. The appeal of these creatures on stage was undeniable, but so was the danger. On June 14, 2008, a live television broadcast in Miyazaki, Japan, took a shocking turn that would forever change the life of one man and deeply impact an entire community. The event was part of Jaga Jaga Tengoku, a popular television program known for showcasing local traditions in a fun, lighthearted way. That day's segment featured a unique competition called Butt Sumo, where participants playfully shoved each other in a large styrofoam ring placed over a muddy rice field. The goal wasn't to knock opponents out, but to get as covered in mud as possible. Yanagita Tetsushi, a well-known television announcer, was there to cover the event. As the cameras rolled, he decided to join in, adding to the entertainment. Without hesitation, he dove headfirst into the shallow, muddy water, aiming to fully immerse himself for comedic effect. But instead of laughter, the moment turned into a tragedy. Beneath the muddy water lay the hard, unforgiving ground. When Yanagita landed, his neck struck the surface with force, causing severe damage to his spine. In an instant, he lost all movement. The live broadcast continued, unaware of the gravity of the situation. At first, even those around him didn't realize something was wrong. Fellow announcer Maiko Konishi, assuming he was joking, playfully poured more mud on his head. But when Yanagita remained motionless, the realization hit. This was no act. He was conscious but completely unable to move or speak. As panic set in, people tried to shake him awake, unknowingly making things worse. Medical professionals later criticized the response, noting that rough movements could have further aggravated his injuries. Moments later, emergency teams arrived and rushed him to a hospital in Kumamoto. Doctors delivered devastating news. Yanagita had suffered a severe cervical spine injury, leaving him with a 99% chance of permanent paralysis. The once energetic announcer now faced a life where even the simplest movements seemed impossible. Despite the bleak diagnosis, Yanagita refused to give up. In the hospital, his first concern was not for himself, but for his family. He expressed a deep concern for his mother, asking them to take care of her when he returned. His resilience was clear from the start. Following surgery, he began a grueling rehabilitation process. In the early days, even sitting up was a struggle. His body couldn't regulate blood pressure, causing him to faint frequently. Progress was painfully slow. Nearly a year after the accident, he could lift his arm just a few centimeters. It wasn't much, but it was a start. After 10 months in the hospital, Yanagita was allowed to return home in a wheelchair. But his recovery didn't stop there. He continued intensive therapy in Beppu, Oita Prefecture, learning to adapt to assistive devices. Everyday tasks, like shaving or using a computer, became major milestones. 3 years after the accident, in 2011, Yanagita made an emotional return to television. He appeared on 24-hour TV Love Saves the Earth, his first time back on screen since the incident. That same year, he passed an information technology certification exam, proving his determination to keep moving forward. By 2012, he was back on air regularly with Mapos, a successor show to Jaga Jaga Tengoku. Though physically limited, his energy remained unchanged. He continued to engage with viewers, sharing stories and local news with the warmth he was known for. Beyond television, Yanagita became an advocate for adaptive sports, particularly boccia, a sport designed for people with physical disabilities. His involvement led to him becoming vice president of the Miyazaki Prefecture Boccia Association, helping to grow the sport and inspire future athletes. Throughout his journey, his family remained his biggest support system. His wife and 2 children stood by him, helping him through the most challenging moments. Their love and encouragement played a crucial role in his ability to push forward. Today, Yanagita continues to inspire. He appears on Miyazaki Genki TV, using his platform to uplift others. Though he faces daily challenges, he insists that his greatest joy is making people smile. His story is one of resilience and hope. Despite unimaginable hardships, he never gave in to despair. His return to television, his dedication to boccia, and his refusal to be defined by his circumstances have motivated countless individuals. What if he had given up? Would we have witnessed such an incredible recovery? His journey proves that even in the face of overwhelming obstacles, perseverance and optimism can lead to extraordinary outcomes. It was 2011 when Jimmy Savile, a well-known British television personality, passed away at the age of 84. On the surface, he was admired for his eccentric personality, charitable efforts, and long-running career. He raised millions for hospitals, was knighted in 1990 for his contributions, and seemed like a man dedicated to helping others. But after his death, long-standing rumors took a disturbing turn. Investigations uncovered shocking truths. He had used his fame and charitable work to take advantage of at least 500 victims. For decades, he had hidden in plain sight, manipulating the trust of the public while concealing his true nature. Savile was best known for hosting Jim'll Fix It, a show that granted children's wishes from 1975 to 1994. To many, he was a quirky entertainer who brought joy to kids. But behind the scenes, he was using his position to take advantage of young and vulnerable individuals, including those he met through his charity work at hospitals. Born on October 31, 1926, in Leeds, England, Savile was the youngest of 7 children. He often spoke about a tough childhood and distant family relationships. Despite this, he created an image of someone who deeply cared for others, especially children. In the 1960s, he started volunteering at Leeds General Infirmary, a children's hospital. He visited regularly, raised money, and even took a part-time job as a porter in 1968, giving him access to patients. His public image as a generous man fooled many, but behind closed doors, he was taking advantage of those he claimed to be helping. One victim, a 14-year-old boy in a wheelchair, recalled an unsettling encounter with Savile at the hospital. Savile approached him, made a casual remark, then crossed a line. This was just one of many incidents that occurred under the guise of charity work. As his television career flourished, so did his access to more people. He later hosted Top of the Pops, a popular music show featuring young female dancers. It was there that some of his most unsettling actions were later reported. One victim, Sylvia Edwards, remembered an incident from 1976 when Savile inappropriately touched her on live television. When she reported it, she was ignored. Despite growing whispers about his behavior, Savile remained a protected figure in British society. His connections with powerful people, including members of the royal family, allowed him to continue his career without scrutiny. He even advised Prince Charles on public matters and healthcare policies, further solidifying his influence. Many people suspected something was off about Savile, but their concerns were dismissed. It wasn't until after his death that the full scope of his actions was exposed. As police dug deeper, more survivors came forward, revealing that his actions had not been limited to children. Reports surfaced that even adults and elderly hospital patients had been mistreated by Savile during his years of volunteer work. The public's view of him quickly shifted. Once seen as a beloved entertainer and philanthropist, he became a symbol of manipulation and deception. More and more victims spoke out, and the scale of his misconduct became undeniable. A 2013 report by the Department of Health revealed that at least 60 people at Leeds General Infirmary alone had been affected by Savile, with ages ranging from 5 to 75. In total, he had harmed hundreds across multiple hospitals in the United Kingdom. For years, his reputation remained intact, largely due to the reluctance of the media and institutions to expose him. One of the most disturbing aspects of the case was the culture of silence surrounding Savile. Many victims feared speaking out, worried about the consequences or that no one would believe them. Some were threatened, while others remained silent, knowing their claims would likely be ignored. Savile's powerful connections and celebrity status kept him safe for decades. In 2014, multiple investigations confirmed the widespread nature of his misconduct. Survivors continued to come forward, sharing their painful experiences and exposing the shocking truth about a man once celebrated by millions. The case of Jimmy Savile revealed how power and influence can be used to hide terrible secrets. For years, his carefully crafted public persona masked his true actions. He manipulated institutions, silenced those who tried to expose him, and left behind a legacy tainted by the truth that emerged too late. His story is a reminder of the importance of taking accusations seriously, no matter how powerful or respected someone may be. The voices of victims must never be ignored, and systems must be in place to prevent figures like Savile from going unchecked.